Hey everybody, Brooks Van Norman here from Brooksfield Technologies, and I'm joined with Derick Dorner, CEO and founder from ScheduleHead. So Derek, thanks for participating in this video interview.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So let's get right to it. You have a pretty unique background in terms of how you came to bring ScheduleHead to the market. Like you were already working years ago in the industry that you now serve, which gives you a real advantage to creating value for your customers. So can you talk about how you got to creating ScheduleHead and your background in the industry?
Sure. Yeah, Brooks. It really was an organic creation for me. I saw a problem and knew that it had to be solved, and it was just an evolutionary process that it took to get there and in solving that problem, right?
Yep.
So it was actually in my own company, which happened to be a catering company. And that particular problem for me was that scheduling was super hard. And it was just a major, hairy challenge that took a lot of man hours because people were showing up at the wrong times and different times. And it took a full-time employee to just schedule all of these people. And I thought that there had to be a better way. So for my particular company, it meant that I created a piece of software that, through a process of evolution became ScheduleHead, which is much bigger these days. But yeah, that was my process, right? It was, I think, really natural and organic, and which is probably how a lot of people do it. They see a problem in their business and then they go about solving that, and then
Yep.
that becomes their company, right?
Yeah, for sure. I always love it when I hear that soundbite. There had to be a better way. That's always the tipping point for
Exactly.
entrepreneur juices to get turned on. So would you consider yourself like a technical founder, or did you have to learn all of the stuff that got you to where you are today?
So certainly both. I'm highly technical. I'm an expert in the technologies that we use, but it wouldn't be fair if we didn't say I had to learn a bunch of stuff to get where I am today as well.
Yeah.
I don't think that you can do any of this alone. I don't think it's possible to absorb all of this fast enough in order to get to where you want to go. So yeah, a little of both columns.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So we worked together recently, and before we did that, you had some areas in the business where you really wanted to move the needle. So what were those areas that you were wanting to improve?
Brooks, a lot of a lot of founders have a very similar problem, especially with SaaSes, which is we know that we've built something that's cool,
Yeah.
but we don't exactly then know what to do with it, right? And we don't know even really who to sell it to. So, like for my particular case, I knew that I built something that was just this awesome thing, but and I knew people would like it, but I didn't really know exactly who they were. We even had customers, but
Yeah.
it was narrowing that down and figuring out who those customers really were so that we can more better identify them and what we're doing in our vision, right? So I reached out to you, and that's the process that you really helped me with. The biggest thing was really reaching out to those customers and helping to get some insight into how they use our product, what it means to them, the value that it brings, and how they process what we do in their own minds, because it's never exactly like you think, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was what started the process, and we've gotten so much out of that. So for example, you recorded these phone calls that you did with customers, and I'll tell you, like, we go back and reference these all the time. I don't know if I've ever told you that before, but we go
No,
back
you haven't. No, that's
all the time because it's really valuable. Furthermore, when investors actually want to speak with somebody, I'm like, here's a bunch of recorded phone calls that we had done.
really.
Yeah, and if they still want to speak with somebody, great. But I've never actually had an investor that need to speak with a client post those phone calls, because they did such a great job of capturing all that information, right? So, and it wasn't just fluff either. It really kind of, the point was to get to the heart and make sure that what we thought, our understanding, what we thought they were thinking was accurate, right?
Yeah.
And in our case, I think that we were lucky because or at least I can say we were as prepared as we had hoped we were, so that we had an accurate perception of what those customers were thinking. But either way, it was just getting that finger on the pulse. So I know that's a really long-winded way of essentially saying, really finding direction, I think, is really what it's going after here.
Totally. I think that's really well put, because a lot of early stage SaaS companies, as you said, will build something that they think is cool. And it's a dangerous place to be, where you've built a solution looking for a problem. And so a lot of SaaS companies die on the vine there, because they can't get traction because they've done it backwards, right? So you had customers, which gave you significant product market fit and validation. But then it sounds like what you're saying is you use that first part of my process to really, as you said, in your words, get your finger on the pulse, but also, and this is a key thing, I believe, is to hear the way your customers talk about their world, their language, because that can inform so many other parts of your go-to-market, your marketing, because you become one of them. And I'm really grateful that you shared that part about, the investors and those other details. I had never thought about repurposing that as a value for clients as well.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and that it really just kind of reinforces how valuable some of that research is, right? Yep. It's kind of like doing a Net Promoter Score survey.
Yeah.
Right. Those are, really oversimplified, and that's part of the goal of those, is to be oversimplified. Yep. But there's nothing that can replace just, like good old-fashioned fact gathering with customers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Voice of the customer. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, cool. So when you think about my program and what we had worked on together, I know you've been through and have experience with other accelerators. What would you say are some of the differences that you saw that you liked with my program compared to some of the other things that you've done and invested in?
Well, I mean, it really is. It's kind of an extension of what we were just talking about. So it's really just being hands-on in actually helping to dig in and understand what's happening. I have taken part in other accelerators, and I think that can be a whole another conversation for many other days. Yeah. But I think that if anybody is willing to help you dig in, and if you have a consultant or an employee or a partner who's going to help you dig in and figure out where you have to go. Those are, it's not just something that's good to have, it's necessary steps, right? And that was my particular problem. And I suspect a lot of other people have that problem when they just have a startup and they know it's great and they get great feedback. But if you don't do that basic research and figure out what direction you're headed, then you're going to be lacking something serious.
Yeah, and that's the key, is you don't know what you don't know. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. So when you think about you're going to market now, like I know you're growing, you're hiring more feet on the street to scale the business, because you do have traction now. What would you say have been some of the benefits that you gained as a result of working together that you're leveraging as you scale the business today?
Just the fact that we have a better understanding of the need to be in touch with those customers. I think that really, the time that we worked together really helped me understand that that's critically important. So for example, I used to see on like investors, websites that they would ask to talk to, and I could just never imagine that. I'm like, what do you think, that I'm lying or something? Why would you need to talk to my customer? But right, it's because they want to make sure that that due diligence has been done, Yeah. I think that needs to permeate through all parts of your business. So when we do things, for example, like when we roll out new features, we make sure that it resonates with a user story from problem all the way to solution, and that it tests with that user story all the way through. So it's really just a mindset shift, kind of a paradigm shift, that it helped me achieve, I would say, Brooks, and it started with talking to the customer and getting our finger on the pulse, and then moved upward and onward from there.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. All right. Now, you know my machine, you know how that works. what's your feedback and thoughts on how that helps get to market?
So this machine, the reason I like this machine, Brooks, is because I don't want to say that it's perfect or infallible, because I don't think those are words that should be used with anything, right? But it's as close as you're going to get. And the reason that I say that is because it uses all of just the good old-fashioned outreach, like elbow grease tools that we have always used to be successful. And so that's what you can put stock in with that. If it were, just like something fancy and shiny and the 2.0 or 3.0, you know, I don't know how you would validate that, right? But there's no need to validate or have an opinion about the machine that you've put together, because it really is just an amalgamation, a conglomeration of all of the things that we know are successful, right? So like outreach over these various channels, tying it all together, touching them, X amount of times, varying that message, and so forth. It's just what successful salespeople have been doing for 1,000 years.
Yeah. You can't hide from the basics.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if any early stage SaaS founders or online service business owners are watching this video and would like to leverage your expertise, what would you say to them to help them avoid some of the obstacles that you had to knock down to just accelerate their path from, pre-revenue or pre-scale to just get to that profitability and get to that ramp faster? What would be some of the key things you'd love to leave as your legacy in this video?
Leave as my legacy. I honestly, if I had to kind of boil it down, which is a really hard question to ask, but if I had to boil it down, I would say, don't waste time and get help, because those are the two biggest things. You can't do this alone. You can't do any of this alone. I've never had a company that I ran alone. It's too much, not to mention if you're really trying to scale a major SaaS. And furthermore, don't waste time. So
Beautiful. Very succinct as usual. Derrick, I know your time is valuable. Thank you so much for participating. Wish you all the best and stay safe, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. See ya.
All right. Take care.